And there's Joseph. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's good to see you.
yeah, we've got a few people that just waiting for a few more people to join us just now. And I thought I'd just start with a little bit of housekeeping. Um, it was going to last for about an hour, and we're going to do a bit of a Q&A. I'm waiting for a few more questions to come through. We've got a few more people coming through now. And we're going to be talking about COVID and how it's affected both of our industries, learn a little bit more about kitchen theory as well. And then if anyone's got any questions, or if we miss it in now, we'll do it in the update afterwards. So just waiting for a few more people to come through now. Hi, Brad. And then we'll kick off. I'm sure people are going to jump in and jump out as the call comes along. So for those of you that are on the call, thank you for joining us. Hi. I'm Lisa. I'm founder of the Wentworth Collective, and we design and deliver experiences for our clients that have lasting impact. And we do that by creating these exceptional experiences with wonderful people who are these creative minds and these creative thinkers who are experts in their field, and they're neuroscientists to chefs to people who deal with vulnerability, and they work with us to create these wonderful experiences for our clients. And essentially during lockdown, when I was thinking about what we were going to do when the pandemic started, I reached out to my collective, and one of the people that I reached out to was Jozef and the team there. And we've worked together in the past. That's lovely, Brad. Joseph and I have worked together in the past. Joseph, I'm not going to steal Joseph's thunder. He's a chef, a Michelin star chef. He's a TED speaker, and he is a founder of Kitchen Theory, which is a multi-sensory dining experience, but far more than that. I'm not doing it service. And we worked on an experience a few years ago where, as I said, we create experiences that last far longer than the actual event, from beginning, middle, and event. And I think you recall, Joseph, the theme was Be Sensational. And it was a talent retention. It was an reward and recognition event. And we wanted these individuals to be the best version of themselves. And we were trying to find a multi-sensory dining experience. And I couldn't find one that really hit the mark. And it was actually my sister who said, I found one close to where you live. And I said, that's impossible. And it was actually true. And we found Joseph and his team, and they have this amazing experience. But I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand over to Joseph, because I think he certainly, as we close National Story Share a Story Month, he tells the best stories. So Joseph, over to you. For those of you who don't know about you, tell us a little bit more about your career so far and what Kitchen Theory is all about.
So, first of all, thank you for having me on the
You're welcome.
show. I should also mention I don't hold a Michelin star. I have worked in plenty of Michelin-starred restaurants, but my background is in working in kind of great restaurants in central London, like Elenda Rose. I worked in the Dorchester. For many years, and it's those kind of experiences were incredible and laid the foundations for me becoming a chef and really learning about how to cook, obviously, and to cook at that level and that standard, which is a huge fundamental part of it. I've over the years always had an interest in science, and that's kind of the direction that we've gone in over the years. But you can never overlook those kind of foundation years that I spent in those wonderful kitchens in London. Hard work, very intense kind of places to work, but at the same time you learn not only how to cook great food, you learn an awful lot as well about kind of gastronomy and learning about those kind of operations as well. So that's my foundation as a chef, usually, mostly in kind of modern European cuisine. But then I had always had an interest, as I said, with science. This goes back to kind of Hervé Tis, who's the godfather of molecular gastronomy, his kind of early writings and books that I was kind of reading in the mid to late 90s, and fascinated by that. And that kind of took me on a journey of, I wrote a book, Molecular Gastronomy at Home, that was published in 2013. And aside from that, in 2012, I met Professor Charles Spence, who is the head of the cross-modal lab at Oxford University. He's an experimental psychologist. He has worked with a lot of fantastic chefs over the years. Probably Heston Blumenthal is probably one of the household names that people would know that he's worked with. His insights into the sensory relationship that we have with food, and how dining and food experiences goes way beyond just the food that you put on the plate, and you know, looking at the sensory aspects of how we as human beings interact with food, what creates our likes, dislikes, judgments, and really having an understanding that flavor is really a construct of the mind, and rather than where we kind of localize the sensation in the mouth of flavor, and even the Oxford Dictionary will define flavor as being a combination of your sense of taste and smell, taste being salty, bitter, sour, sweet, umami, and aroma being everything else that kind of contributes towards flavor. I guess we take a slightly different perspective, looking at how all your five senses play a role in your appreciation of flavor, and particularly looking at how augmentations in one sense can actually trigger differences in another in some way. So looking at the relationship, the cross-modal relationship between things like what you see and what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and how all of these really have to come together in a congruent fashion for you to be able to make judgments, expectations, and have some kind of satiety and enjoyment out of your food. And that has really laid the foundations for all the experiences that we've curated ever since. So we started off doing pop-ups in London in about 2013, and different pop-up kind of locations and spaces. Since 2017, we've opened the Chef's Table, which caters for 12 diners, 10 courses. It's a full-on, well, you've experienced it, it's a full-on kind of multi-sensory experience that is far more than just about putting, because it's always important for us that you put great food on the plate, but also that we want to transport people. It's this idea of the experience economy and people wanting to experience more, and not just kind of for social media. That's a big driver for in some cases, but people are looking for, if you want a great meal in London, there's plenty of places that you can go for a great meal. It's saturated, if anything. But if you want an amazing experience, that's something where you find that there's a lot more thought that goes into the curation of the overall experience, and rather than just a focus on the menu in some way. And yeah, that's kind of where we are till now. A lot of our work as well, aside from the Chef's Table, is the kind of work that you kind of talked about very briefly, which is working with brands to design multisensory food experiences which are engaging and which are less about, let's say, the actual food or dining experience, and more about how you can tell stories and how you can bring these brands' philosophies, ideas, campaigns to life in both on the plate, but in the overall experience. So we work with a lot of large brands on designing those kind of events.
Yeah. And, you know, when we worked together, it was essentially encouraging people to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And what I love about the experience, and I've been fortunate enough to work with you, you know, on a campaign with one of our clients, but also to experience the Chef's Table, which I've got to say, whoever's watching, when it opens, you have to, it's up there with the top 5 experiences. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here with Joseph. It is truly sensational. But I think with true engagement, you have to invoke the senses. You have to make sure that they're all lit up and, you know, the brains are rewired. And I think that's what's so exciting. From when we ran the campaign for one of our clients, it was different foods that you were having and the different implements that you're eating on. It was just making sure the sense and the touch just really amplified the experience, which I think is really exciting. And I think I'm going to touch on that a little bit further in this, you know, Q&A, just to ask how we recreate that and lockdown. But for the purpose of this discussion, I think, you know, given the situation at the moment, and with the announcement of the pandemic earlier this year, restrictions on the hospitality industry, in the live events industry, we've certainly seen a pause. Food and beverage world has certainly been hit as well. How has it affected your business?
Well, we're in hospitality and events, so from pretty much a week before the lockdown was announced, we knew that we cancelled our chef's tables. I think that was in line with what a lot of people were doing at around that time. We knew that, whether we felt it was safe or not, you're thinking of, you don't want to be part of the problem, do you? You want to kind of find the right way forward. And so the chef's table events, which we host kind of on a monthly basis. They have been postponed until we hear a little bit more on directions for moving forward. The events are all on hold that we had lined up, although the clients are online and we are kind of in the kind of planning phase for a few projects. But, there's always that question that's looming over as to when will this actually happen, though. But I think we all understand at some point we will return back to and enjoy themselves, and so you still have to keep planning for those kind of events and reopening the chef's table, and all that has to still be there in mind.
Yeah, and I've seen how a lot of the partners I've been working with have been turning what they do on a day-to-day basis as a force for good, and how they've been pivoting where they haven't been able to have business as normal. And I've been really enjoyed watching. I know we talk about Soups with Love, how you have pivoted your business by giving back to the community. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about this with Love, how the idea came about? And actually, is the subject of collective thinking, I think it's such a good example of how you've brought in a collective of people and collaboration to turn this situation around, to be able to give back to the community.
Sure. So I guess in times of adversity, you want to try and rather than falling victim to the situation, you want to take ownership of the situation and I guess embrace reality, as they say, and find a way, if anything, to contribute and help. Kitchen Theory, I guess starting this up, one of the bigger goals, even with the research that we do with Professor Spence on looking at what I was talking about earlier, the sensory relationship that people have with food, that applies to great dining applications of that within schools, hospitals, and so on. And really looking at how we can design better food experiences. So our goal has always been in some way to have positive impact on our industry in some way. And when we were down and that there weren't going to be any events going on, what resources do we have that we can put to use in some beneficial way that will help the community around us at the very least? And so, well, we're chefs, right? And, we believe that food is such an important part of people's well-being, and having a good meal is such an important part of, putting people in a more positive place. And so, we're talking a few weeks ago now, I think this was kind of in the late March, where there were kind of reports that NHS staff weren't having access to enough food, or that they weren't able to access or weren't having proper meals. And so we reached out to Barnet General Hospital, which is local to us, and we started daily donations to them of soups for the staff. And then we also had reached out to Community Barnet, who we have been donating soups to, and Age UK Barnet. So it's incredible, actually, in London 2020 to see just how much need there is out there for this kind of support and help. And I'm sure that existed as well before this circumstances, but I guess this has shed light for us, at least, as to how widespread of a problem it is, even within a local community like Barnet. And so the plan was to make soups, because, as I said, as chefs, that's what we can do. We can cook. And we have been very appreciative of all the support and help that
Yeah.
we've gotten, both kind of the support online
Yeah.
and the, people cheering us on, and that always feels great, as well as the support that companies like Siemens have stepped in and offered their support. Companies like Davin Foods, who are a fruit and veg and food produce supplier, who have been fantastic. We just got a delivery from them this morning. And they've been massively TriStar Packaging and Ambicat.
Did you?
And all of that kind of support. I think at this point we're kind of so it's not huge, but it's what we could do with the team that we have and the scale of the operation that we have here.
Yeah. Oh, we seem to have got stuck here. Oh, it seems to have got stuck.
I think you're back.
Are we all still here? Yeah. Seems to have got stuck. Oh, great. Perfect. No, I think it's a great example of how everyone's worked together. And I like how you've been engaging with the community with the different names of all the different soups as well, which has been fantastic. There's been some really inventive ones as well throughout the weeks. It's been good to see.
Well, it's a feel-good project as
Yeah.
well. I mean, that was the idea as you wanted. It wasn't just, at the end of the day, it wasn't just about giving the staff at the hospital great soup. It was also about kind of putting a smile on their face and just cheering them up and letting, and that's actually the feedback that we got more than anything from people at the hospital, was that they really appreciated that there were people out there thinking about them and trying to support them. And it was important as well, I should probably mention, for us being a hospitality business, to do something like plenty of people who were giving donations, but the hospital got to a point overwhelmed with people just trying to send pizzas and send random kind of bits and pieces. And, as a hospital, as a package them and deliver them in the right way without any concerns over kind of health and safety. So that was an important factor in the beginning as well.
Yeah. So looking forward, we're starting to see a chink of light. We're seeing some of the lockdown restrictions lifting slightly. Some people going, I spoke to a client this morning, they're looking at plans to open their offices, plans for events a little bit on hold. But we're both passionate about, designing, engaging, remarkable experiences that lasting impact. And so that's the USP of your experiences, the theatre and bringing people together. What steps are you taking? What's your vision? It's quite a multi-layered question, but how do you see it moving forward? What are your sort of plans for reopening, and how do you think you're going to be able to, with the social distancing laws in place, how do you think you'll be able to get people to engage, which is such a big part of what you do, especially say for example the chef's table, part of the and I'll say to the people who are viewing, part of the experience is meeting, because you limit the numbers. You can either have the experience for 12 people uniquely, everyone around the room, but part of it is actually, I know when I visited, was meeting people from all over the country and the world. I was sat next to a guy actually from Thailand, and it was just brilliant. And that's part of the experience and the gathering as well. People coming together and that magic that's created by meeting people who you're coming for this joint experience because you love food, you love something different. I know, speaking to the couple who are next to me, this was something that was on their bucket list. What vision moving forward to continue your USP and what you live and breathe for?
So I mean, it humbles us at times when we do have people from all over the world coming to enjoy the chef's table. And what's crazy is a lot of the feedback that you get about our chef's table from people when they kind of you ask about their memories, what they've enjoyed, or you kind of go back into that. We've done kind of research into these things. And it's so interesting to see that both, it's people. It's always about people. It's our team, and it's the people that they meet at the table and the people that they engage with. And that's such a powerful part of these shared dining experiences is meeting people from, as you said, all different backgrounds from all over the world. And I can tell you over the years, we've had some extremely diverse people at the table. I mean, you don't know when you've got 12 guests coming to the table and you've got 6 bookings of 2, let's say, you have very little idea on what's going to come through the door. But, you know, we love our guests. We love hospitality and hosting them and bringing them into our world. And I think there's that kind of people who seek us out and the kind of stuff that we do, maybe have a shared passion for gastronomy as well, and a shared interest in not just kind of interesting or creative food, but also in experiences that transport them in some way, or they kind of, we have a lot of people who travel around the world to these different types of dining experiences. How will we continue going through? So I guess the chef's table for the public, like, is the kind of event that you would have come to, where you can book a seat, 2, 3, up to 4, I think it is, for any one party. And there are 12 people, up to 12 people at the table. For the public, we're probably going to put those on hold for a little while longer, because you are around one table. And to put, I saw a chef who's based in Galway in Ireland, putting up online, he was putting up a poster that the government had put out saying that you had to, the restrictions, the distance restrictions that you had to have even at the same table. And he calculated that to get a table in his restaurant, which has a relatively small dining room, that he would basically be able to get 4 people in there at any one time if they would sit at one table. And, you know, so I guess from that perspective, we won't open the chef's table up initially to the public. I do think as time kind of moves on, that people will become more relaxed about the being willing, you know, once the rules as well are more relaxed, and once time goes on, once there's a vaccine or whatever it may be, I do think that people will come together around the table if they necessarily know each other or not. I think that's part of the, people seem to enjoy it so much, that kind of engagement, that I fail to see how that won't find a way through this. Yeah. For now, the big focus will be on private dining. So bringing friends and families, people who are in their own kind of bubbles, who want to come. And I think actually, as a kind of business model, we have quite a bit going in our advantage at this point. We are outside of central London. I'm not saying that's necessarily, that hasn't always been a positive thing. It's probably the first time I can actually say that that's a positive thing, that we're not in central London, or positive from a foot flow perspective. But I think being slightly outside London maybe is great for people who live outside of London, or who don't want to be venturing into central. We're based in North London in Barnet, so very accessible still, but at the same time, a little bit outside of maybe the very densely crowded kind of areas, especially on transport and so on. Second of all, you have the whole space to yourself when you have a chef's table, right? And our studio, when you come in, you have the whole studio to yourself. There's no one there other than you, your friends, loved ones, family, and of course, our team. And so I think from that perspective as well, rather than going into a restaurant with 40, 50, 60, 100 other people around you that you're not, that you don't know, maybe having your own private space for the evening is something that will become more attractive to people. And finally, I think the idea of more meaningful experiences, and I mean that in the sense of, you know, people have probably had a lot of time to reflect over this time. I think people want to come together as family and friends and have great experiences, but I think that's what they want, is great experiences. And it'll be more than just, we'll be more selective about when we do go out, where we're going to, and how we're, not just how we're spending our money, but how we're spending our time, where we're, you know, where we're choosing to hang out. Maybe we've never given it as much thought as we have now. as we have, sorry, until now, this idea of, where do I feel comfortable? Where, do I feel like I can enjoy myself? And maybe crowded kind of spaces aren't necessarily that, people who maybe did enjoy that won't enjoy it quite as much. So I think all those things will play into our benefit. So we'll continue, obviously, with the private chef's tables, which on a monthly basis, we probably do more of than the public ones in any case. And then we will continue to do the events work. And I think, if anything, we're probably moving more towards looking at kind of developing online content like we've always done in the past, but maybe more of a focus on that now. So things like trends reports or recipes or social media content around food and experiences. So that's probably, if there's one part of the business that I guess we'll be focusing on to look to grow in some way, it'll be that kind of content creation.
Yeah. Because I think it's really interesting, the work you do. And I know that when I first started working with you guys, I was always fascinated with multisensory dining. But I think what's really unique about the work you do, and when I always like share it with my clients, is how your senses are elevated. And I think, that is something that you can create. I mean, the theory behind it, you can just, I suppose, to teach people how, listening to music, for example, or the things that you touch or the sense in the room, this all adds to the experience. And I think actually a multi-sensory experience, so much it's not just the food on the plate, like you say, the people around you, and the cutlery, that's something with the cutlery that you use as well. So it's very much mindful eating, rather than just eating frantically and quickly. So I think that's really, really interesting. What the other question I wanted to ask was, in the work that you do, what does collective thinking mean to you?
Well, I guess our work has always, to some degree, been based on collaborative projects. I mean, from when we started out doing the pop-ups in Islington back in 2013, in Highbury, Islington, at the House of Wolf, which I don't think exists anymore. I think it's now the Dead Dolls Club.
Yeah.
Since then, I mean, our work has always been based on collaborations with people like Professor Charles Spence, who, over the years as well, we've published a lot of research, published probably about 16 peer-reviewed papers, I think it is, or something like that to date, looking at multisensory flavor perception. And we've worked with people like Erison Lex in 2014, who's an amazing designer and artist, who inspired one of our experiences called Keiseki, which was based on philosophy and art and creativity and culinary heritage and culture. And so since the very beginning, it's always been about this idea of collective thinking, I guess you could say, which is bringing people and trying to understand what we can learn from each other, understand, how we can. I think a lot of people are in this mindset now that if you want to improve or be ahead in some way in your field, that actually looking at what other industries or other disciplines are doing can be a great way of trying to find innovation within your own industry or within your own bubble. And one of the probably most fruitful of all these types of collaborations has been with Professor Spence, but also as well as that, let's say the Imperial College Chemical Kitchen. So that's a project that was initiated by myself, Professor Roger Kneebone, who comes from a medicine and surgery background. He works at Imperial College. And he had approached me with an interest in this kind of cross-disciplinary learning for surgeons and seeing what parallels exist in the worlds between medicine and gastronomy. And what that resulted in was the Chemical Kitchen, which is a has started as a first year module for all, as a chemistry module for all first year students that really, rather than teaching them, we're not teaching them how to cook. They're not teaching them necessarily about chemistry. What they're looking at is teaching them these soft skills in some way, as well as some kind of skills that are rooted in both chemistry and the kitchen. So I could give you an example, something that we take for granted in the kitchen called mise en place, this idea of having all your food ready and en place and ready to go for service, and that kind of level of organization, preparation, you may call it, or food preparation. We found that actually that was something that maybe not all chemistry students were familiar with, this idea of the kind of steps that you can go through to prepare your section as you would, whether you're in a chemistry lab, whether you're in an operating theater, or whether you're in the kitchen. And so it's about teaching them how to work in a laboratory. It's about teaching them how to think more creatively. It's teaching them about really, I guess with chemistry students, well, the main thing that you have to understand here is chemistry students, when they turn up in year one, not all of them have necessarily worked in a lab, and some will have several hours worth of experience working in a lab, and some will come in with a couple of hours of experience working in a lab. So to put them on a more equal playing field, we felt that getting them to work in a kitchen, getting them to go through the same kind of steps that they would were they in a lab, but doing that in a kitchen environment in some way helps them get used to working in that kind of a space and maybe feeling a little less threatened, because this isn't chemistry and they're not being they haven't got, their professor breathing over their neck, and there isn't an expected outcome that they should get. And if they don't get, their experiment has failed. And so to take away a lot of those pressures. And of course, we got to remember it's all about the student experience. Yes. So offering them a class like this gives them a completely unique experience that you can only get if you go to somewhere like Imperial. And it's all part of that journey that you go on, as because you've got to remember, a lot of chemistry students will go out and work in all different fields. I mean, they're not all going to turn into chemists and work for, GlaxoSmithKline. These people will go into all sorts of disciplines after that. And so it's as well about kind of broadening their vision of where chemistry is in maybe everyday life as well.
Yeah. And I remember when we worked together, I remember the excitement actually for the show work, because the way that you work, as you go, when we sometimes work, outside the chef's table, is going into organizations. But I also remember the excitement on the faces of the people who have had a lot of experience. I don't know if you remember, but they were so excited to learn these new skills, spherification. It is all exciting stuff. And I always remember Lulu, who works with you, talking about the dry ice, just all the theatre around it. But injecting something new, and I think something with collective thinking, it pushes you forward and you learn new things and you get out of your comfort zone as well. So, I think that's really exciting. I'm just having a look to see if we've got any questions here. I have one question. So I said, if money was no object, what would you do all day?
Oh, I'd probably have even more work going on, wouldn't I? I mean, I'd probably be working even more if money wasn't an object. I mean, and I mean that in the sense that I probably have so many different projects going on that it would be, I mean, if money wasn't an issue, there's plenty of different projects I'd love to bring to fruition, but that need both attention and resources, and attention and money. And, if you have an unlimited amount of money, well, that can definitely help with hiring the right people to help spread your attention. So, I guess I'd just be busier.
I've got another question here. What has been the highlight of your career so far?
I don't know if I would consider having a highlight so far. I guess the highlight so far is just the highlight. I tell you what the highlight is that we've gone through COVID-19 and I'm still sitting here and I have a business. That's my highlight. That you think of how many startups fail, and we started in 2013, and it's been up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's been a rocky road with everything that can
Yeah.
push you and, you know, push you to the point where you kind of think, well, no, I guess you never, it's not about thinking about giving up, but you kind of think how much more can one bear? And so, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's the highlight, is that we still, the team and I, Lulu, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
who's my partner in the business,
Yeah.
and of course, you know, Professor Spence and his work, and all the team that we have over the years, the commitment and dedication, and that it's got us to a point where, I mean, hopefully these aren't last famous words, but where we're still kind of standing at this point. And
Yeah.
no, I feel very blessed for that and very grateful. And that's a big part of why you want to have that kind of positive outlook
Yeah.
on the future, because I mean, these are, you know, very different times for everybody, and no one could have, or not no one could have seen it. I think find plenty of people who say they seen this coming, but your average person like myself, I didn't see this coming. And I guess it's all lessons, right, that you learn about how to face adversity. And I think that's always
Yeah.
something that one needs to appreciate. And I genuinely can say that I appreciate that. So the highlight would definitely be the fact that we've gone through such difficult times, and yet we're able to have a very positive outlook on things and kind of forge forward.
Yeah, yeah, and I must say, if you don't follow you, Joseph, already online, I'm finding your daily workouts with the team as well very motivational. It forces me to go to the gym, just because it's good to see the inventiveness of not having a gym that you can go to, but using the tools around you to be able to still work out. So we're fortunate where we live that there is a lot of space, but unfortunately the gyms are now closed. Probably slightly linked. So is there a moment you'll never forget? So other than the other one, is there a moment in your career where you've created something that's truly, been a highlight over the others?
A
Another
moment
question that's coming.
a moment I'll never forget in my kind of, I guess, like the bigger picture of my career and stuff like that was I came back to London after having lived abroad in the Gulf for a few years. So I'd finished university, moved back over to the Gulf where my family were at the time, worked out there, came back to London, and it was around 2008. It was going into it was just beginning January 2009. The economy was in a very, very kind of bad state, and I knew friends and even that were losing their jobs and stuff like that. And plenty of people said, you don't want to be going back to London now. I mean, that's crazy. Why would you go back there now? I mean, you're going into, the eye of the storm. But I was pretty resolute about the plan that I had to want to come back to London and work in the kind of Michelin star establishments that I did. And I remember it was, I guess by this point, it was probably February.
Yeah.
I was staying in some place in Victoria, and I remember I had just gotten a job at the Connaught. This was my first job back in London, and I was so super excited. It was day one, and I remember the snow was about kind of halfway up your calf. It was so heavy. And it was the first time, it was the first day or something in 50 years that the London bus service hadn't run because of how heavy the snow was. But the most memorable moment of that was arriving in Mayfair, and the sun hadn't really come up. The place was covered in snow, and I remember walking towards the Connaught and thinking, damn, I work there. And it had accomplished, I'd been, for quite a while, I had set my plan on wanting to come back to London and work in a Michelin-starred restaurant and kind of fulfill that ambition in some way. And for it to happen in that way, and just that, and just that morning, I'll never forget. I felt so grateful for that opportunity.
That's amazing. I'll look out to see if there's any more questions, but as we're sort of like coming towards the end of our conversation, take away from this lockdown? Pause.
I think we're stronger coming out of it than we were going into it. And I think that undoubtedly there will be a lot of casualties, along the way to finding the new normal. And I think there'll be globally, the outlook. I think we need to approach it with a sense of optimism, because I don't think it's going to look exactly great in the beginning. But I think we need to kind of I think, my belief is, and I mean, it's hard to think of a time when the whole world has come to its knees in this way. So it's a great leveler in a way, which has been interesting. But I guess point is through all adversity in history, you found people who have managed to rise to the challenge, and in some cases become extremely successful at what they do. And so I think there's always opportunity there. There's always ways to move forward. And I think this is what really will draw out a lot of innovative ideas and concepts, especially around dining, especially about online dining and food experiences and how we share food. And I'm talking about specifically our industry. Obviously, this tips over into all industries, but I think the innovation that we will see in the coming months will be fascinating, and the coming months and years will be fascinating. I think to see the kind of different businesses that will emerge from this, and the different concepts and different models that emerge from this, because Lisa, I've been asked for years, people when they come to the chef's table, one of the first, since the days of when we were doing pop-ups, one of the first questions you get asked is, when are you going to open a restaurant?
Oh, really?
And I've never really been into the idea of opening. I love what we do with our chef's table. I love the kind of intimate experiences and the immersiveness of them. And they're not necessarily we've never seen that we wanted to scale it up in a sense of having a kind of restaurant setting. We enjoy the format and the way it is, and our guests enjoy that. And that's the most important thing, is that's what really does it for people, is that intimacy of the experience, the hospitality, the closeness that you have with the experience, the chefs, the food, the stories, everything that kind of draws you into these experiences. And so, we'd never want to lose that. And now when we come to a situation like this, I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I'm really grateful that I don't have a restaurant. I get to do what I love, which is work with food and work with creative people and work with, I remember, restaurants are not necessarily, like, I remember the first time I met Heston Blumenthal, which was in 2015. I remember him saying to me, within the first few moments of speaking to him, he said to me, restaurants are some of the least creative places that you can work. And I thought, that's really interesting that you would see that, given how creative you are as a person. But it's true, because especially when you're at a certain point of fine dining, the taking risks is really difficult. Being creative in kitchens you're looking for consistency. So being innovative, making mistakes, learning from mistakes. I mean, that's not always, in places like the Fat Duck, obviously you have, creative kitchens and spaces to do that. But I'm talking about in most restaurants, it's all about lunch, dinner service, and it's maybe about launching the new menu, or the new daily menu or weekly menu, or whatever it may be. And so for me, being able to so many different the types of experiences that we do, both at the chef's table and with our clients. I mean, going back to the question that someone had asked me earlier, is what if money wasn't an issue? What would I be doing? I'd still.
My love is, the context of what, in my business, where I'm approached by my clients, problem or an issue or an objective that they want to achieve, and they'll say, I want to engage. I want to make people. I want people to think differently. I want them to open their minds, or I want them to try something new. Coming to you and the team and saying, "This is the problem. This is what we're trying to solve. These are the outcomes. How can we do this?" And creating those experiences. I think that still exists. We're still going to have to create these experiences, because there's still going to be a problem to solve and a need. It's just how we do it. And I think in lockdown, to your point, is what you're saying, I think it's forced people to think differently. And we're going to see so many creative ideas to come out of this, but still with that same essence and heart of what people do. And for me, it's working with wonderful people like you, and like, with the work that you, it's like, I see it quite positive. I know there's been, and it is an awful time that we're going in, but in terms of businesses, I know that there's some businesses that, you know, probably won't survive. There will be some creative thinking that does come out of this, I do think. I have a question, one of my questions. Who would you like to work with? In the spirit of collective thinking, is there someone on your list, or are there a few people on your list who you'd like to work with? Who inspires you?
I'm quite lucky in terms of, I'm one of those people who, you know what, I'll read a book and or read a paper or something, and if I like it, I'll contact the author, and usually you get a response.
Yeah.
So most people that I kind of respect or like or want to work with, I just simply reach out to and try and work with. But if we're talking about maybe people that are a little less easy to reach, then Elon Musk could be a good one.
Yeah.
I think someone like that is extremely creative, and I think if someone like that was to I think this is the power of it. If someone like that was to turn their mind towards, you know, food. If you look at the bigger picture of the world that we're in, and beyond COVID, and even the issues that COVID is creating in this space, which is kind of global well-being. You know, as Kitchen Theory, our goal is set as improving global well-being through innovations in gastronomy. That's our kind of mantra, or that's what drives us, gets you up out of bed in the morning, kind of thing. And I think that there's such a need in the world now to look for innovative solutions around food and gastronomy to improve food security, sustainability, to encourage people towards making more nutritious, more sustainable food choices. And I think, as I said, again, this is not just talking about kind of in dining experiences and hospitality, but I'm talking about in schools, care homes, hospitality, care homes, and looking at how we can improve, at least for us, our vision is looking at how we can improve or how we can optimize, I should say, sorry, these experiences towards giving people better experiences. So it could be a better experience at the care home that allow, you know, we'd done research a few years ago that looked at, we found that in care homes that the ice cream tends to be, so you have obviously people that are suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, you'll tend to have loss in senses, taste and smell being among those, loss in appetite, and as well forgetfulness around things like eating, even if the food is right there in front of them, just even the act of engaging with the food in some way. So how can you use the sensory research that we do to in some way optimize those experiences and allow people to have a more positive food experiences, get the nutrients that they want. We found that ice cream seemed to be popular in care homes. Even there was a bit of like, the more people you spoke to, it seemed to be a bit of an inside joke that, oh yeah, well, ice cream always goes. And you're like, well, that's quite interesting, because what is it about ice cream that makes it, you know, and anecdotally as well, I've spoken to a lot of people who have had family members who are suffering from some form of a degenerative disease, and they'll tell you that, yeah, it is interesting how certain foods, and ice cream is one that kind of keeps coming up, is that they engage with more. And so we looked at the possibility of creating nutrient-dense ice creams that essentially, I mean, we think of ice cream, we think it has to be a dessert and it's sweet, but not necessarily. I mean, one of the things that we were looking at was how can you create nutrient-dense ice creams that actually or encourage the elderly or those who have degenerative diseases to perhaps engage with their food more and enjoy it more. And it could be that with ice cream, you're not so dependent on smell and taste as much, that you've got a lot of other sensory cues like the temperature, the texture, the creaminess, and you know, there's maybe those kind of elements that you take away and you think, well, you know, that's what we need. It's not so much the sweetness, and maybe there's a nostalgia. Ice cream always has a positive kind of connotation to it. So, you know, we were looking at ways of doing that, and I'll keep this very short, but it's probably worth noting as well the work that we do with another group from Imperial College, which is related to it's a project called Hyperfoods. Yes. And it's essentially looking at using artificial intelligence to identify cancer-beating. Well, it started with cancer-beating molecules within everyday ingredients and foods, and then how can you turn those into recipes? So this is really looking at the kind of curative properties of, or the medicinal properties of food, which has been largely overlooked now, even though we know that diet is one of the main contributors towards, well, obesity is one of the main causes of cancers in the UK, and poor diet and health and lifestyle. And so being able to identify foods that we're most interested, I guess, in what you would say is drug-food interactions. So looking at how the food that you're consuming works with the drugs, because actually there are certain foods that will retard the drugs from kind of being as effective as they can be, and there are certain foods that will actually enable the drug to kind of optimize its effects in some way. And so that's really our interest. We're not looking at replacing food with medicine with food, because medicine is great and it's keeping us all living much longer. So I'm not advocating that as much as it's really interesting to look at that kind of drug-food interaction, because there's been so little work done on that. So little. I mean, so little. And so that's why I'd like to work with Elon Musk, because I believe he's the kind of person who has the kind of oomph that something like that is, we could both geek out about. And
That'd be great. That'd be great. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to do a quick fire round, and then if anyone's got any last minute questions, I have nothing, no more have come up. No, we're okay. So, what is the first thing you're going to do back to normal? I say in inverted commas.
Oh, I have such a boring life, Lisa, that you know what? I'm pretty much doing the same now as I do. I move between our studio and our apartment. Spend a lot of time with my son and Lulu, and yeah, I'm good. So what will I kind of first do? I don't know. I'm kind of content and happy, and it's all good. I think what I'm most looking forward to is when we have our first chef's table and we have that energy and buzz in the studio. You know, there's always, before every service, doesn't matter what restaurant you work in, there's always that calm before the storm, that moment of when you're ready and people are like, I miss that.
Yeah,
I miss that buzz. That's why the chef's table, I will always work on the chef's table, because I love that experience, that buzz. And I think that's why the guests enjoy it as well, is because we have fun with it. We love doing it. So
it is just brilliant. I'm saying, you know, it is hands down, you know, and I experienced it before. I knew what was coming. You know, I did it for a large group, but it is unique. It's different.
Thank you.
Both good, but it's just wonderful. Favorite podcast that you're listening to at the moment?
Joe Rogan, all the way.
Joe Rogan. Yeah. And book? Favorite book?
So right now I'm reading The Magic of Business, which is quite good, and it's all about, again, cross-disciplinary learning. So basically you've got business consultants and magicians who are looking at the similarities between being successful in business and being successful as a magician, in terms of kind of theories and philosophies and ideas, and how that comes about. So that's super interesting. But this is probably my, so far, favorite read that I just finished a little while ago. Be Our Guest. It's a Disney book by the Disney Institute, and I just think it contains a lot of stuff that for anyone working in hospitality is great. You know, Disney are the absolute masters of experiential everything.
I shouldn't leave this to the end of our conversation. It's probably for another time, Joseph, but you probably don't know. I used to work at Euro Disney, and I've been to the Disney University.
Well, I have a book by them too.
Yes. So I have actually, and I've been talking about it recently, about how I think unknowingly to me, I went there when I was about, it was 18. It was part of, because I did French at uni. This is, I don't want this to take too long, but I did French at university, and everyone can work out my age now. But it was the opening crew in 1992, and learned. It was just fascinating. It was brilliant. But I'll save that story for another time. So just how can people find out more? Where can they follow you? Where can they sign up? Where can they follow the Kitchen Story?
These days it's pretty easy. I think all you got to do is Google Kitchen Theory, and I think we're pretty SEO'd up. You'll find us. But yeah, it's Kitchen Theory on all our social media, or obviously Jozef Youssef. And yeah, no, it's exciting times ahead, and I think we'll
I so
kind of watch this space.
definitely, and I'm booking my table the moment it opens, and yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you so much, Joseph. I really, really appreciate your time. I know
You're
you've
more than
got
welcome.
work to do, and I appreciate you taking time. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. I'm going to see if there's any other comments that have come through, and then we'll sign it up, and then I'm going to post it back onto Wentworth Collective Insta stories, and maybe the live if I can work out how to do it. But thank you so much. Stay
You're
safe.
welcome.
To Ryan and Lulu,
I
and
will.
everyone else have a wonderful day. Thank you much.